Hello, thank you for joining me for a look at DORA, DevOps and deployments. I'd like to share some ideas that are informed by some practical experience of using theoretical frameworks and of applying research to software engineering in real life. A rough outline for today's session is that we're going to take a look at DORA and the research work they've been doing for almost a decade. We're also going to think about whether DevOps means the same thing in 2023 that it meant back in 2008, which was when Patrick Dubois presented his session at Agile Toronto, and that foreshadowed the creation of DevOps Days. We'll then talk about culture and how you can change it even when you're not the boss. I'll also close with a look at metrics and share how Octopus customers have access to some cool insights that can help inform your continuous improvement journey. But that's enough about all these other people. What about me? My name's Steve Fenton, and I'm a technical content creator at Octopus Deploy. I'm joining you today from Basingstoke in the UK. I'm really honoured to be able to share some ideas with you today. Previously, I've been a software engineer, a development manager, and a director of product and development. I've worked in quite a few industries, including automotive, finance, technology, but perhaps most crucially, it was when I worked in healthcare. In most places, you can diffuse the tension by saying, what's the worst that could happen, or nobody's going to die. But we were providing emergency triage and possibly dispatching ambulances, so there was a very real possibility that lives were at risk. The process we developed and the automation we introduced was designed to give us really high confidence in the safety of the software we were building, but we found something else. It also allowed us to iterate quickly because everyone who needed to be involved in the development of the software, including our product manager, who was a clinically trained nurse, was on the same team. This was the kind of team the DevOps movement was talking about. Patrick Dubois says DevOps is about removing the friction between silos, and all the rest is engineering. So we should create truly cross-functional teams, and everyone who's needed to make things happen should be on that team. We should also carefully manage the dependencies and interactions between different teams. We need to pivot away from functional silos to something more cross-functional, with minimal, carefully managed dependencies. Patrick also said during that 2008 conference talk that we should deploy often, not just the application, but the database and the infrastructure. So has this idea changed, and if so, how? The big change in how we think about DevOps and software delivery has come from DORA. DevOps Research and Assessment. Everyone forgets the A, it's for assessment, so they've added a little banner to their logo to help us all out. You might have heard of DORA through the amazing book Accelerate by Dr. Nicole Forsgren, Jez Humble, and Gene Kim. Or you might have heard of them through the Accelerate State of DevOps report, which Octopus is proud to sponsor. For the past year or so, the DORA team has also been letting us get an inside view through the DORA community. The community meetups tackle questions about putting all these insights into practice across many different kinds of organizations. Using a lean coffee format where everyone can suggest topics and add their thoughts to the conversation, we get to hear diverse perspectives about how to apply the research in the real world. Now, over the years, the state of DevOps research has helped us understand our industry better than ever. We've now got concrete ideas about what practices are needed for DevOps, what collaboration really looks like, and how we can help organizations to be more successful. So let's take a look at these concrete things. This is the DORA core model. It doesn't contain everything they found in the research, just the items with the highest confidence, but that makes it a lot smaller and more manageable. It's a capability model, and that means that each of these boxes is a capability, which is a fancy way of saying a thing you can do. Before DevOps came along, the agile software movement had lots of different ways you could work and things you can do, and they were based on experience. This was often called empirical observation. People shared what worked for them. The research confirmed some of these things. You'll recognize some of the capabilities in this list have come from extreme programming and continuous delivery. In fact, continuous delivery is one of these boxes. Both of the authors of the continuous delivery book, Jez Humble and Dave Farley, have been involved in the research over the years. There's a lot of good stuff you can use from this model. The research says doing the things on the left makes it more likely you'll get the things on the right. You get the green box, which is near the middle, and that says how well you can deliver software. But you also get those blue boxes on the right, which are even more important. Who doesn't want less deployment pain, less rework, and less burnout? Crucially, organizations that work in a way that's consistent with this model perform better against their goals, and that's things like revenue and market share, changing the world, or even taking over the world if that's what they've decided they want to do. Whatever commercial and non-commercial goals they have, they're more likely to achieve them if they use this model. One of the things on this list is particularly important. It's the one called generative organizational culture, and we'll be coming back to that shortly. Before that, though, You can find out more about the research at DORA.dev, and you can join the discussion with the research team and other practitioners at DORA.community. So let's get back to this thing called generative culture. Where did this grand sounding name come from? A chap called Rod Westrom studied culture in safety critical industries. He found there were three types of culture: generative, bureaucratic, and pathological. Here are the cultures in their detective form. Jessica Fletcher is your generative culture. She's high trust and low blame, as long as you don't kill someone. People share concerns and take action to stop problems before they happen. Near misses are opportunities to learn. This is the ideal DevOps culture. Hercule Poirot is a bureaucratic culture. Everything is subverted to the agreed procedures. Things have to be arranged carefully. You must fill in the right forms. Mistakes are investigated and controls are brought in to try and prevent them from happening again. The problem with bureaucratic cultures is the actions they take to make things better often make things worse. If a deployment fails, they introduce change advisory boards and increase the weight of their approval process. This slows things down and it increases batch size, and this means performance ends up getting worse. Sherlock Holmes is a pathological culture. Big personalities rule at the expense of team success. There's a lack of cooperation. People don't want feedback. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything. When something goes wrong, someone's going to get it, and it doesn't matter too much who. The problem with pathological cultures is that everyone is wasting time covering themselves. You have to collect evidence of everything, and you use this when things go wrong. Nobody's really your friend or your colleague when the axe is swinging. It's everyone for themselves. Because you can't talk about near misses or failures, it's not really possible to improve anything. So how are we supposed to fix our culture if it's got problems? The answer is we do it with actions. You have to act your way to a new way of thinking. Nathan Harvey said this during one of the DORA community meetups recently. You've probably worked somewhere that started a cultural transformation project. They come with a big internal marketing campaign and they have slogans on pens and posters on the walls. I worked at a company that had a quality problem, so they ran Project Ron. They said, do it right, do it once, do it now. And the posters had that written and it spelled out the word Ron. But nothing changes when people talk about culture. You can put up inspirational quotes and you can put up posters, but the only impact is that your facilities department says you should have used blue tack and not sellotape on the walls. The one thing that you can do that works like a lever on culture is to take action. Now, more specifically, if you're on a development team, you have to make some local changes that will then spread beyond your borders. We're going to look at how this cycle of cultural change can work using the DORA core model as a source of inspiration. We call this the capability culture cycle because you use the capabilities to create an environment where change is possible. There are 4 stages, so I'm going to pick a random stage to start with. I'm choosing stage 1. As a technical team, you can improve your pipeline. The book on continuous delivery by Dave Farley and Jez Humble describes this pipeline. It includes everything that happens from the moment you check in on a change right through to that change making it to production. So this is things like your code review process, your build, your test automation, packaging your application, setting up infrastructure, and deployments through all of your environments. This is the production line that exists within your software delivery process. Everything that happens before that commit is part of the creative design process, where humans are using their ingenuity to create something valuable. But once the change enters the pipeline, it should all be conveyor belts and robots. There shouldn't be any manual handling here. Everything needs to be automated, repeatable, and reliable. But this is a long list of things, and it's definitely too much to do in one go. You have to narrow it down and pick one thing, some part of this pipeline that's slowing you down, something that you can do that will bring you a solid win. That's where we go and get our high quality, large format, laminated DORA core model. Yep, it's this slide again. I'm going to show it again later on too because I've found it so useful. You might use this as part of your existing retrospective or a continuous improvement process. It's a source of ideas of things that you can do that are statistically likely to lead to good outcomes. Most of these capabilities need some practice, and you might not see the benefits until they become fluid and familiar. But at least you know there's evidence in the wild that shows they do work. Each item in this diagram that has a line lifted pointing towards software delivery performance is one of the possible things you can do as part of the first step in this capability culture cycle. What will move the needle and make things more reliable, more repeatable, and more secure? Maybe this one, deployment automation. There's something about this one I like a lot. I'm joking, of course, but in all seriousness, this is never a bad place to start. You spend some time up front automating your deployments, and then you win that time back every week forever. That makes it self-funding. When I've been brought into an organization to help with their software delivery, I first check they have basics, things like version control. There are still some teams that don't use it, so we make sure those scary situations are dealt with quickly. But after that, I'm always adding the same things: test automation, deployment automation, and observability, which includes monitoring and alerting. Over the past 10 years, these are usually the crucial missing pieces, and teams are wasting time and energy handling these things manually and handling them late in the process. In the worst cases, customers are handling the testing and observability rather than the organization, and that's not ideal. These might not be the gaps in your team. The great thing about this capability model is it doesn't assume to know your context. You're better placed than anyone to apply the model. You know what problems you have and what your organization is trying to do. So you take what you know and you look through the model to find inspiration. When you find a capability that you think will help, you select it, practice at it until you can do it well, and then see what it does to improve your ability to deliver software. A simple way to tell if it is working is the 4 software delivery performance metrics. They're in the green box just off to the side here on the model. The metrics give you a balanced way to understand what good software delivery looks like, and we'll come back to metrics shortly. So you've done something to improve your delivery. What happens next in the cycle? After 1 or maybe 2 changes, when you can see your performance is improving and your confidence in your ability to execute is heading up, you should be able to reduce the size of your batches. When your pipeline is slow, you tend to collect lots of things before pushing them through the painful process that gets them into production. But if the pipeline's fast, you should be able to use it more often. By running your pipeline more often, there'll be fewer work items in that batch that's being deployed. Now, this has quite a dramatic impact on risk and complexity. You'll catch problems sooner, and it's much easier to link issues to their original cause. You won't find valuable work getting delayed by problems that are caused by all of the other changes in the batch, which is a really common problem when you have large batches. Most importantly, you'll be able to show your changes sooner, which means you can get feedback that will influence what you work on next. Instead of continuing with a bad plan, you can change the plan based on what users are telling you about the work you've delivered to them, either directly or through some system of measurement. For example, if you intended to decrease abandoned shopping baskets, but your changes increase the abandon rates, you can revert the change and think of a different way of solving the problem. It puts a stop loss on the amount of money you waste developing features when it turns out they aren't useful or valuable. But in terms of changing culture, it also means you can build trust. When you look at the more depressing software development frameworks, you'll find that they all share one thing: they're really heavy. Lots of tasks have been added to the process in an attempt to control what software teams are doing. There are checks and balances, signatures, and documents whose only purpose is to indemnify someone in the highly likely event that the project will be a disaster. The reason for this heavyweight process is the organization doesn't trust the development team. What's worse is that the process actually makes the team look worse, and that further justifies increasing the amount of process to try and control it. It's a cycle of infantilization of what should be a professional industry. But when people in your organization can see that you can execute well, they start to relax. This is what you want to prove. The software and the business is safe in your hands. Demonstrating your ability to execute is what shows people in your organization you're a professional software engineer. So as you iterate on these first 2 steps, you'll continue to build trust. And this is a crucial investment that I like to call the trust fund. When your trust fund has a healthy balance, you can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is where you ask the business to move with you. You've taken actions to demonstrate your ability to do great work. The business can see the results. Now you ask them to relax a constraint. They can remove a barrier, do something to make your life easier so you can perform even better. This is where you might ask them to simplify the change approval process if it's too heavy, or increase their investment in tools, or open up production deployments to a wider group instead of a single gatekeeper. In our Octopus survey, we found having a single gatekeeper for production deployments limited the benefits of automation, because the constraining factor for the team's performance was getting past the gatekeeper. It didn't matter if deployments took 5 minutes or 5 days, they'd be waiting longer than that to get the sign-off. You can download the Octopus survey report from our website at octopus.com. The state of DevOps research also tells us that streamlined change approvals increase software delivery performance, and they make a positive impact on well-being too. So this is your opportunity to get something in return for all of your work improving the pipeline. You've moved, and now it's time to ask the business to move with you. With the capability culture cycle, instead of asking for a generative culture, you're going to grow it. By increasing your skill in these capabilities, these things you can do, you increase the balance of your trust fund, and that enables and encourages change to the wider culture. What you ask for will depend on your context, but ask for something that's going to give you another chance to repeat the cycle so you can show what happens when you work with the business to collaborate on improved software delivery. Use the 4 metrics to track progress and to bring a curiosity to what you do that will take you past doing things how they've always been done. When choosing a capability to explore or your next ask of the business, base it on the pain points that you identify in your retrospectives or in your other continuous improvement processes. Before long, both the business and the technical people will be showing all the signs of joy. Look how happy the detectives are now. And I can confirm that that is what Sherlock looks like when he's delighted. So we fixed our culture, right? Well, not exactly. What we've created with this cycle is a culture bubble. A part of your organization is now a better place to work, but it might still be surrounded by business units with different cultures. It's possible to keep expanding this bubble, but you might not be able to transform your whole organization this way. You really need the top leaders in your organization to be actively working on culture if you want to make a sustained change. If those leaders don't support it, then it may be a generational issue. Those leaders would have to move on or retire before you can expand that bubble and make things permanent. And the longer the culture has survived, the more it will resist change. If your local leaders support the change, but leaders elsewhere in the organization don't share the same values, you end up creating what Will Larson calls a values oasis. That means the cultural bubble won't survive a change in leadership, and the team might not be prepared for what happens when their leaders leave. If you've ever led a team that all left the organization soon after you did, you probably created a values oasis. It feels like the right thing to do at the time, and I've certainly done it before I knew what a values oasis was, but it isn't always the best thing for the people on the team. None of this means the bubble isn't valuable. Everyone on the inside of the bubble is doing great work, and there's less burnout. It's making a genuine difference for a whole lot of people. Maybe that's enough reason to persevere, but make sure people understand the limitations of this bubble so they don't get a nasty surprise later on. A common problem with a values oasis is that the technical capabilities that you introduce aren't sticky. If the champions move on, the practices that they brought in start to slide. So you might find it helpful to share with the team what a values oasis is so that they understand those limitations and they understand that those practices won't stick unless they also support them. So I think on balance, we have a useful concept with the cultural bubble. It may not be perfect, but it's definitely making things better. If you can get enough traction by demonstrating the benefits to leaders, you'll increase the number of people who benefit. To really spread the joy, we need to convince our leaders of this. So that's where measurements come in. The capability cultural cycle benefits from measurement because what you measure will help you improve your execution and build up your trust fund. Metrics help you understand whether all your hard work is paying off. They also help other folks in the business understand the value of the work you're doing. It doesn't answer the question, are we there yet? Because continuous improvement doesn't really have an end state, but it does answer the question, are we pointing in the right direction? The real things we're interested in impacting are the things on the right: organizational performance and well-being. These are the true measures of success, but they tend to be a lagging indicator, which means they're not as useful to your continuous improvement process. When you try out a change, you need to know sooner whether it might be working or not. And that's why software delivery performance can be so useful. The numbers are easy to obtain, and when you make changes, they respond sooner. Once software delivery performance moves, you'll see the outcome metrics moving later on. When it comes to tracking your ability to execute, the 4 software delivery performance metrics can be a really good guide. They measure performance in a way that relates to the broader success of the organization rather than the traditional software metrics that you may have seen on legacy projects. If you improve these 4 metrics, you're likely to increase the balance in your trust fund, and you're likely to help the organization hit its goals. At Octopus, we wanted to help you with these metrics. We might not be able to see your whole pipeline, but we have a view of a crucial part of it. So based on your deployments, we can provide you with a set of insights. Deployment Insights shows you a representation of those 4 key metrics, plus a bonus one that's really relevant to your improvement process. The tempo metrics include deployment frequency and deployment lead time, and the stability metrics show the rate of failed deployments and how long it takes to recover after a failed deployment. You can also track the duration of deployments, which means you can detect when deployments are taking too long and take action to reduce the time it takes. You can drill into all of the data and the trends, find outliers, and see recent entries. So, when you're applying the capability culture cycle, these metrics will guide your improvements and help you add to your trust fund, and that's pure gold. Deployment Insights in Octopus lets you inform your improvement efforts and detect when things are slipping. The dashboards can motivate you to do many of the things that will improve how you work. Smaller batches, frequent deployments, and short lead times will help you improve all of these metrics. I find it particularly useful to drill into the detail in these reports to understand why the charts look like they do. The screenshots here are from web projects that I actively work on. You can see we've made dramatic improvements to the deployment lead times, but even the slight problem emerging where lead times are starting to head back up for one of the projects. This is great stuff. We can look at why that is and take some action. Let's quickly check what we've covered today. We've had a look at DORA and their research. Turns out they did quite a lot for us. Thanks, DORA. You can find more information at dora.dev and join the discussion at dora.community. We also looked at how our understanding of DevOps has changed thanks to this huge research program. We then looked at the impact our actions can have, creating the right conditions for culture to change. And for tracking our improvements, we looked at the Octopus Insights dashboard, which will give us an idea of where we should focus our efforts. Thanks for listening. I hope there was something useful for you in the session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of SHIPPED23.